Puritans, heathens, and heretics. God, that's going to give me a heart attack. You carry on doing that. Yeah. Welcome to another In the Abyss video. Something different this week. We're going to do an actual album review.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll come to that in a minute. It's a fucking great album, by the way.
That's it. That's the review.
That's the review. So
right.
Thanks for watching. Cheers. We'll see you next week. But first, as per usual, let's talk about beer, and we'll be talking about
Radio City Beer Works beer. Radio City is sponsors of the podcast, so we want to shout them out, not just for that reason, but because they make delicious beer as well. Radio City have a brewery and bar in Chelmsford, so if you're in the area, do pop in and get yourself a pint. But if you live further afield, you can buy all the beer online. So if you go to their website, which is
rcbw.shop,
you can have a look at all the beer they sell, they make and sell, and have it delivered to your door. And it is well worth doing because it is delicious. Thank you, Radio City.
Magnificent beer.
But what else are we here to talk about?
We are talking about, right, before we start this, I just want to get an apology out there straight away for any pronunciations or anything that just basically ruining the Finnish language. So we apologise now to everybody in Finland watching this. We're not idiots really. So the album is Havukruunu's new album, TAVASTLAND, and I'm assuming that's how it's TAVASTLAND. You get the picture. It's not in the bag because it isn't out yet. We don't have the vinyl, so yeah. But what Havukruunu? So Finnish Black Metal. Okay, so relatively new to me, Havukruunu. I think I first heard them sort of last year, but don't really pay too much attention.
The last record was a banger actually. That and funny saying that, it was reviewed on Banger TV. That's how I came across them. And I can't remember the name of the album now, so you'll have to get online and have a look. But one of those bands has just been on my radar. So when we got noticed they were about to release some new music and an advanced copy of the new album, I was really excited.
Yeah, and it is something. Look, black metal. We love black metal most of the time. There's an awful lot of rubbish out there as well, but you know, there is, like it or not, there is. But when black metal hits the spot, and we say this quite a lot, when it hits the spot, it really fucking hits the spot. And this is one of these albums. So Havukruunu formed in around about 2013 under the name Talviku. Again, apologies if that's wrong. Which translates to winter moon, and Havukruunu translates to coniferous crown. So there's obviously sort of thoughts about it. TAVASTLAND is their fourth album. It's their first on Svart Records, and I'm going to have to read this. It tells the story of how in 1237 the Tavastians rose in a rebellion against the Church of Christ and drove the popes naked into the frost to die. So that's a selling point in itself. It's undeniably Finnish. I think it's the way to look at it.
I mean that'd be a fair description. I mean, it opens with this kind of spoken word piece, which I assume is telling the story of this, this uprising and this event that they based the album around. You know, it's interesting because not speaking the language, that spoken word part feels a little bit. I don't know what the word would be, but obviously it's difficult to connect to it. So it kind of seems a bit strange and otherworldly to me.
But it sets a mood.
Which is the point I was going to make. It sets a mood, and it just pricks up the curiosity. But then you get into the first track. It's it just hits this really strident, sort of triumphant groove straight away. Really primal riff comes in, and then that first track really gives you a taste of everything that's going on the album. So you kind of get all the ingredients. You know exactly where you stand from that first track. It has got that sort of that strident pace. It's got time shifts in there. Great opener.
It is a great opener, and you might wonder why we're not naming the tracks, because to be perfectly honest, I don't want to. I can't pronounce the track names, and I don't want to. I don't want to ruin it. So we will consider it track 1, track 2, and so on and so forth. You can work the rest out from there. Track 2 is like a journey track.
Yeah.
You know, he's sort of galloping across the plains and you know, going into battle kind of thing. And you know, it's a slow, epic build, but then 4 minutes in, you get the first real taste of the guitar work on this album, right? Which is, and in my notes, it's a very guitar-y album, and that kind of, it does kind of sum it up, doesn't it? Some of the soloing is just out of this fucking world.
I mean, look, it's heavy metal music, so it's going to feature guitars, but I think for me, what I love is when black metal bands lean into other genres. You know, I think for a long time it was just the icy, cold sound. But the guitar work, the solo work on this album, it brings in some real bluesy influences and kind of classic rock influences. So, you know, when they hit with a solo, they really soar and they go into this different place. And it, you know,
it feels like it's like, you know, the guitar player wearing a fucking cloak and the wind blowing.
It's great.
It's very, you know, over the top.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's, you know, I'm not sure how the
Black
band...
Metal Malmsteen.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how the band would feel about me saying this, but it's kind of got this stadium rock sort of element to the solo. Really, you know, something that just really lifts.
A bit like what Spectral Wound do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those elements of something a bit more commercial, a bit more straightforward in the mix, and it does work. Yeah. If it's done right, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're definitely doing it right. And I think actually just on this track, the other thing I noticed, just in terms of arrangement and musicianship, like the song sort of sets itself up, and then when you anticipate it coming in, like the bass player's kind of holding this, you know, this higher register, which really creates this great tension. And then when it finally crashes in after that first verse and the bass drops down, you know, you get this extra wave of power that just comes through the music. And it's funny you say it's a journey. I listen to this track and I imagine like this longboat just kind of like riding into Valhalla, you know. It's an album from very early on that just creates images in your mind, you know. It sounds expansive. We get the choirs coming in early on as well, so cool. That's something that I think features really heavily in this record. Is a lot of the choruses, there are a lot of moments that are augmented by these huge kind of group vocals that just sounds like a massive choir of Viking warriors, or you know what, something of that ilk. You know, it's huge. It sounds like a battlefield. It sounds like the celebration after a battle.
Good use of strings as well. You know, like Mork's Civ last year. Great use of strings. A much more raw record, that, and a much more traditional black metal album, but you know, the same kind of approach with dropping in those strings. The title track is probably the most traditional and straightforward black metal track on the album, I would say. Yeah. You know, it's a great song. It's the first single, and it makes sense for it to be the first single because it's sort of 5.5 minutes long, and it's one of the shorter songs on the album. And it's, you know, it is traditional black metal, and it starts off with like these owl calls. Yes. Again, it sets a picture, doesn't it? It's almost like you wake up in a forest, you wonder where you are, and you can hear this owl, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then, but like black metal, it just goes absolutely full on. Black metal. I mean, this is a heads down. You know, again, just to shout out the musicianship, because I think it's deceptively. You know, it sounds like a primal album, but when you dig deep, there's some incredible musicianship there and arrangement. There's a bass drum pattern in this. The drummer's playing something that's almost like Meshuggah-like, but without that clean clinical production, it takes on a life of its own, and it sounds much more aggressive and sort of gnarly, and you know, I love that. But gnarly, dude.
It's not, you know, what he's playing is not an easy thing to do. You know, there's real control there and power in that. So you know, shout out to all of them in terms of what they're bringing with musicianship and arrangements. Lots of folk elements in there as well. Again, on the title track, there's sort of like what sounds like a celebration going on, and it kind of makes me think of, like, you know, after they've driven those popes out to die in the frost, this was the party they had. Yeah, you know, and there's a story behind the whole album, and you could argue it's got a bit of a prog rock feel at times. I know that's a dirty word on our podcast, but it's definitely in there. Turn your back on me. How dare you? Oh, I turned my back on you. But no, I mean, we're being a little bit harsh there about prog music, but
It was close. It was close. Look, you had jazz on the last one, so
well, this is true. This is true.
Let's talk about the closing track, because that's a proper epic, like 11 minutes long.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to attempt it. De Miseris Fenorum.
Okay, that's a fair effort. Yeah, I'll give you.
Let me know if I'm right or wrong.
I'll give you a gold star for that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, this has got a really triumphant. Like, I think when we talked about it initially, you mentioned Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the riff. The riff wouldn't sound. The main riff comes in a couple of minutes in.
Yeah,
wouldn't sound out of place on Holy Diver. You know, it's got that epic metal feel to it, and again, triumphant is a word we've used already, but that's definitely a thing.
There's people that will be able to talk about this with much more confidence than I can, but it sounds to me like it's kind of written in a major key. It's got that sort of uplift to it, which isn't something I would typically associate with a black metal album or something this kind of heavy and aggressive. But that last track really does lift, and it doesn't sound out of place.
No, not at all.
You know, and again, they're just using sound in a really great way, because when it comes in, the whole thing just lifts up in a really natural way, just takes it to another gear, which is great.
I do love an epic album closer.
Yeah.
You know, quite often with a new album, I go to the last track first and look at how long it is, and are we going to get some big, expansive epic? And with this, you have, again, we talk about the soloing, it's sort of laced all the way through.
Yeah.
You know, but at no point does it get jarring, or does it get boring, or does it get silly, or everything sits just right. It's a very well crafted black metal album, and it's, you know, what I said at the start of this video, this is when black metal hits the spot.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah,
very much so.
Yeah, it's not, you know, because it has all the ingredients that you want from black metal, but it's not up its own arse in the fact that it's, you know, it's not willing to take risks and bring in other influences and take sounds from, you know, traditional heavy metal. You know, you mentioned folk. We've got some acoustic guitars on this album. You know, and you mentioned the sort of the atmospherics. There are moments where there are literal explosions on this album, and sounds of smashing glass and things like that. So there's chaos in amongst it all, which just makes it a really interesting listen. Yeah. There are synthesizers in there. We get a moment of synthesizers towards the end of the.
But it just all adds to the,
as you said,
appeal, doesn't it?
None of it jars. None of it feels out of place. You don't for a moment get sort of sucked out of this, you know, whatever headspace you're in. No sudden left turns. It's just a really great blend of all this stuff, all these influences. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm definitely a converted fan. It is available on vinyl, so go and check it out. There's UK distribution as well. It's like 22 quid on vinyl as well.
Yeah,
so it's,
yeah,
that's you know, a decent price. But it's out on February the 28th. Like I said, it's available online. Obviously, it'll be on all the streaming and whatnot. But as far as we're concerned, and you know, our views on black metal, like I said, ups and downs. A lot of it's terrible, but this is definitely
with caution. Sometimes
it's a fucking great black metal album, and definitely the first, you know, sort of one thinking, this is going to be an end of the year list. This one, I like it that much.
Yeah,
you know, so it's on the spreadsheet, and you need a spreadsheet. So yeah, go check it out. Great album, TAVASTLAND by Havukruunu, out on February the 28th. Spark Records. Check it out. And that's it. Thanks again for watching. We will be back again next week, probably.
Hope so. If you have us,
drop some comments down below as well. You know, let us know what you think. Give us feedback. Call me a wanker, whatever you want to do. But just come out.
Call him a wanker. Go on. I dare you.
Yeah, do it. Go on. I love being called a wanker. So thanks for watching. See you next week. Stay heavy.